What's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back for another edition of the Astro Weather. Excuse me while I clear my voice a little bit, my throat. Wow, we are in the gauntlet, aren't we? Let's let people kind of gather in here and fill the room a little bit so I can hang out with you for a while until we get up and running. So let me just say some shout outs here. We'll do a few minutes of shout outs. We don't have to end the shout out. I just can't make a show out of it, apparently. So Julie Sunshine 333, you're with us. Glad you are. Welcome to the show. Kelly B's here. Teresa Carr. Is it October 1st? It is. Indeed, Teresa. Scott Jerzik. What's going on, Scott? There's my man. DJ MC Nora Rashid, the Queen of Speed. She's with us. Mary Lee. Hi, Mary Lee. Looks like you managed to escape this round of natural disaster. Mr. Bo, Kabuki Theaters here. Liddy Lou. Our man, Mark S. What's going on, brother Mark? Good to see Misbehaving too. Queen Lisa, Sharon Lewis, Meow Meow Kitty Poop, Laura E., Lisa Ann White, the Laws in the House, Green Eyed Crow, the lovely and talented one, saving Austin one tooth at a time. My man Ryan is here. The Knight of Cups, Nicole DePaulo, Tom Jordan, Exploring the Car with Ra. What's going on, brother Ra? Good to see you. Yes, a lot of things happen over on locals. A lot of things happening on locals right now. We have basically a what is now another 24-hour offer for locals members to purchase a virtual pass to this weekend's event. That's all day Saturday and Sunday with Darlena and her human design download extravaganza. So for the next 24 hours, you local members get a discount. That's right. You get a discount, but you got to be over on locals to get that discount because that's the only place right now where it's posted is over on locals. After tomorrow, the discount goes away. Membership has its privileges. And then we'll have general sale tickets for everyone who want to take part in this year's event but cannot make it. So just wanted to bring that up because membership does have its privileges. Ratchet Boo, what's going on? What's going on with you? Moira NYC. Hope you enjoyed it. Ra, you were great. You're always great, man. You're always great. Rama Lama, she's up late at an ungodly hour for the plumber. You know, sometimes you have to be there for the help. Plumbers are busy people. So hey man, you gotta make it available while you can. You gotta be available while you can. Holly Beth from Cambodia and Nayeli Cardenas. TDF, love the shout outs. Well, we'll do the shout outs at the beginning here, and then we'll do some more at the end. We love the shout outs. Mark and I love the shout outs and greetings. Makes it very personal and fun. The show always goes on great. Well, thank you. It's always interesting. Some people are like, man, just get to the meat. I want the meat. I don't want any of those little frivolous appetizers. I want the carnivore version of the show. And look who's here with us today. Oh, there she is. There she is. The little cat from space. She's our little space kitty. Yes, October starting out with some major events. That's right, Sandra Jackshaw. And I got to get in a hey for Harriet Bowie. JJ. Look, it's JJ saying hi to Tom. Let's see. Leanne Ott is here. Hi, Leanne. Melissa Stan. We got a great crew as always. And look, Barbara Boots was finally able to get into locals. Guess who helped her? Nugs, what's going on, Nugs? Hey, we're going to be doing a serious sports with my guy Osiris today. And next week is the return of Gracie to serious sports. So, and I think Osiris will be there as well. And looking forward to having Gracie come back. All right, let's get into the weather. I'll come back again at the end and I'll check in with you guys. Wow. So check this out. You guys got to check this out. This is really weird. And you have to ask yourself, okay, is this really part of just this cyclical experience that astrology demonstrates? Or is it the frickin' unions hiring an astrologer? So dig this. The last time we had a dock worker strike, now what's interesting about this strike, which was in 1977, it's very hard to find much information on it. In fact, when I went into Wikipedia and looked at, I mean, they basically have strikes, a list of strikes that go all the way back to like the 1600s. And in 1977, this strike is not mentioned on Wikipedia. This is weird. And maybe this has something to do with the fact that it took place under an eclipse. I don't know. But you'll read anything about this dock worker strike, which again, we started talking about last week, that it would be coinciding with the eclipse. So again, you'll read that the last time, well, you didn't read that it would coincide with, we talked about that, but you'll read that the last time it happened was in 1977. Well, when did it happen? It happened in October. And they said at the beginning of October, which is very vague. What is the beginning? The first, the second, the third? I don't know. I've been trying to find an exact date. We know it happened according to the news, and it lasted 44 days. What a magical number. On October 12th, there was a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. And even though it was at a later degree, this eclipse is going to be happening at what, 10 Libra? It still happened under a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra in 1977. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that date, I'm not mistaken. Yes, I'm not mistaken. That date is, where are we? Aleister Crowley's birthday, October 12th. Just a mere coincidence. There's nothing at all planned about that. Solar eclipse, Crowley's birthday, lasts 44 days. You can't make this shit up. The other thing that's interesting is that astrologically, we have the opposite. Well, it's not exactly opposite, but it's close. Well, it's not close. It's about, 13 degrees out. But Uranus was in Scorpio then. So we're in the midst of a wave of innovation. And I've talked about this before, that when Uranus was in Scorpio, which is exalted, by the way, it's exalted. Uranus and Taurus is in detriment. So this is about the rapid advancement of technological and social evolution, and Uranus and Taurus is the rapid deconstruction of it. All you have to do is go back to World War II and look at where Uranus and Taurus was at that time. And what did we see with Europe? It was destroyed. London, Dresden, major swaths of Europe destroyed. So that gives you an idea of Uranus and Taurus. It is de-evolutionary. And I think we could make a critical call that everything post World War II, even though it takes off financially because of the Marshall Plan and all the other things that take place during that time, then the bulk of manufacturing moves from Europe to the United States during that period of time. The United States is really the bulwark of the Second Industrial Revolution. The First Industrial Revolution, of course, takes place mostly in England and other parts of Europe, but England. But anyway, that's a different discussion for a different time. But I just thought it was interesting to bring this up. The sky is a clock. The sky is a clock. All right, let's take a look at where we are now. Let's see, where are we? Okay. What are we looking at? That is the stop share. Let's go here. And let's get into, I think this should do it, right? Yeah. So that's us now. Isn't that interesting? Look at this. It's almost an exact, well, the congregation and affiliation of planetary influence is almost in the exact same position as it is on that October 12th chart. But you can see over here, there's Uranus and Taurus, which is what I'm talking about. That's the opposite of Uranus and Scorpio. Neptune was in Sag back then, and where was Pluto? Pluto was in Libra. Right. So Pluto was also in the mix somewhere over there. So here we go. Wow. If you remember, sometimes these shows just blur. And I can't always remember what show I talk about things on. And sometimes there's a crossover. There's a crossfade. And it might have been about 2 months ago. I started to talk about this concept of the gauntlet and how at a certain time we would be running the gauntlet. In fact, I actually did a locals only presentation on that. So that was for supporters of locals. And I talked about a period where things would get very heavy and intense. And I was using the metaphor of a gauntlet for the chain of events that would take place. And one of the things that gauntlets have done over the years is that they've served either two purposes. One is for punishment, and the other is for initiation. And some could say that perhaps they're the same thing in some regard. In other regards. So if you are, let's say, for instance, and this is all part of the weather, so just bear with me here. So let's say, for instance, you are a transgressor in the Spanish Civil War, and one of the famous gauntlet scenes is described by Ernest Hemingway. And you were a transgressor in the Spanish Civil War, meaning that you were one of the revolutionaries and you were captured. You were forced to go through the gauntlet. And there were two things that would do. Number one, punish the hell out of you for essentially being a disruptor to the state. And somebody may say, well, gee, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that a good thing to be? Well, in Spain, it's a very complicated question because Franco, who ultimately becomes the de facto president of Spain, you could say that he was a Caesar in his own right, presides over Spain during a period where there's great economic growth. He kicks out the Masons and he kicks out the Jesuits. Is that such a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe that is the kinder, gentler version of fascism, which ultimately results in the overall benefit and growth of the people. Although the Basques probably have something different to say about that. But once you went through that gauntlet and you got the hell beaten out of you, you probably think, well, maybe this communism thing isn't such a good thing. Okay, I'm ready to take my place back in Spanish society again. That's an initiation. And sometimes gauntlets are just that. They're just like gang initiations. So we're in the gauntlet now. And where do we start? Well, we could talk a lot about what happened in North Carolina. We'll have a client of mine over on 15 Minutes at about 9:30. Her name is Teresa, and she lives in Boone, North Carolina. So she's going to give us a firsthand account. She sent me a bunch of pictures, and I'm going to show some of those pictures she sent me. So we have this massive event in the Southeast, which for all intents and purposes, to me, feels like it's manufactured. And of course, we've been in a lot of ways conditioned and trained to ratchet up the paranoia, but it's beginning again. There's a story that I'll cover over on 15 Minutes where there was a guy and his son who had their own private helicopter, and they're flying supplies into Lake Lure. And then the fire chief goes in there and tells him he can't do it. And if he's going to do it, he's going to get arrested. Which is shades of Mike Brown. Remember Brownie? And Katrina? We'll get into more of this on 15 Minutes. And apparently there's more to come. That this huge water event isn't finished. Now we have the dock worker strike. On top of that, by the way, it can end quickly by the president invoking what's called the Taft-Hartley Act, which has been created to avert real damage to the nation's infrastructure done by unions. But let's say we're 30 days into this, and whoever's got the pilot light on in DC says, okay, time to invoke Taft-Hartley. How much damage will have been done? We're just getting started here. We are in the gauntlet now. This is what I was talking about way back when I did that presentation on local. So let's talk about the eclipse, because it's really front and center with most people, what they're thinking. It's really funny. The eclipse in April of last year was, look, I think it's done what it's supposed to do. And again, I'm going to get into more of that in 15 minutes. And we're still reeling from the effects of that eclipse. But there's something about this eclipse, even though it's taking place, somewhere in the South Pacific, kind of coming in and slicing off the bottom part of Chile, Argentina, Tierra del Fuego, Antarctica. There seems to be a lot of energy around this eclipse. And it's not even a total solar eclipse, it's annular. And we won't even really see it, right? So what is it about this eclipse that has people paying attention? Again, I go to the other side of the sign, Aries, because this is what happens when eclipses take place. The other sign opposite is accentuated. So what we have over here, let's just, again, we talked about this on Sunday night. The Aries is the individual. It's you, it's me, it's everybody else, and it's the adversity that we have to deal with. And in some ways, even though Aquarius, to me, is sort of the representation of the modern social contract, because Franklin Delano Roosevelt was an Aquarian. He passed the New Deal and brought in more layers of government and more layers of socialization. The contract doesn't take place without Libra. So this is really what we're dealing with. We're dealing with like labor contracts, labor disputes. And I would say this whole idea of fairness, equality, balanced interchange, quid pro quo, which is a very Libran principle. And we're sitting around here, and especially the people in the Southeast, sitting around wondering, how are our lives ever going to be the same? They won't. They won't be the same. How will our lives recover? Well, that's a different question. And now we have a dock worker strike where theoretically goods can come in and those goods could be used in an emergency situation. But guess what? They may not be available. I haven't even gotten into the huge disparity of money that's been spent in places like Ukraine and Israel. And not only that, but the amount of money that's been spent on the new social contract with people who are not from this country and whose tax dollars, yours, have paid and are paying for their comfort and their assimilation, if that ever happens. And so here we go, right? This is what exposed. This is the exposed nerve of this eclipse. It's the true node in Aries. And this is all about adversity. Libra is the easy button. Aries is not the easy button. So this is really the focus. And okay, it's great. Well, why don't we go help people in the Southeast? Because Aries does what really well? First responder. It's great at first responder. It's great at jumping in and, hey, there's a crisis. Hey, let's go. But if there are rules, regulations, and petty fucking tyrant fire chiefs that don't allow that to happen, then how can we, in good faith and conscience, respond to a crisis? How can we respond to those who are facing adversity? It's nearly it's not impossible, but it makes it a lot harder. So, it all, the thing with Aries is like we feel alone. Like we're alone. Who is going to come? Superman's not about to fly through that window anytime soon. But it doesn't make it any easier when there's red tape and petty tyrants that want to get in the way. So we're just getting started. I mean, tomorrow is really the height of this eclipse. And it really feels like that's a big part of it. Like this is a big part of what we're experiencing right here. The true node in Aries. For me personally, I'm having a very introspective moment. And part of this started last week, when I, threw out I just said something on Monday or Tuesday of last week. And it was my, I guess what would I call it? It's like a 2-year social media menstrual cycle where I'm like, I kind of like look around and go, oh man, that person's got all those fucking views. Oh yeah, I know. I get unsubscribed, but still, it does a number in my head, right? And I do my best to just put it aside and keep moving. Well, this time when I brought it up, people were like, "Hey, man, you take way too much fucking time to get to the content," and I said, "Fuck." So swearing came up as well. I'm sorry, but I'm not. So I listened to that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to this because I'm at this place right now where I like, for me, things need to change. For me to continue to do this in a way where it feels like for me, this is just for me. I'm being really selfish here. True node in Aries, I need to feel like I have traction. Right? For me, I need to see that number go up and to the right. So in order to do that, I am trying to streamline my model. But it's not just here. There are things in my life that I'm also really looking at in my relationship to certain things. And this is what an eclipse should do, especially in the sign of Libra. It theoretically could get you to think about your relationship to things. Anything. Money, time, energy, output, relationships in your life, right? Because this is really the on switch. The lights are off here. The lights are off. This is the on switch. And it's all about Aries. It's like, what do I need to do? What do I need? What area of my life needs emphasis and focus, and what do I need to do to dive into it to make it work? Doesn't matter what sign you are. This is the overall general broadcast and theme. We've got Mars and Cancer, and again, boy, that is isn't that like a dock workers aspect? Mars and Cancer, it totally is. It's like they're the ones that scuttle off the goods, right? The goods that we need in order to make our lives balanced. And Mars isn't even retrograde yet, but it is in this T-square. Look at that. Mars squaring Chiron. That square is only going to get more intense. Cutting edge, bleeding. Aries is what? It's humanity, manpower, Chiron, the wound. And guess what? By the time we get into Eclipseville, tomorrow, that sun is getting closer and closer to that square with Mars. So eventually, by the end of the week, we're going to have a Sun Mars square, and Sun's going to oppose Chiron, and boy, are we in for it. I like the Grand Trine. We still have this Grand Trine going on. Venus and Mars are sort of dancing with each other a little bit. And I think it's an interesting concept to stay in touch with one's feelings without being overly emotional. Isn't that really the Libra quotient? To stay in touch with one's feelings, but not be overly. Well, this is this Grand Trine. And it feels like, there's a great deal of empathy with the Venus-Mars trine and then Venus trine Saturn. I mean, in a perfect world, this would be the response mechanism to, let's take the dock strike out of it, but just the disaster in the Southeast. I mean, Mars in Cancer is, hey, let's help our neighbors. Let's help our family members, our extended family members. And Saturn is about resources, and Venus is about those relationships. So we have that going on. Guess what else we have? We have another Grand Trine happening. And it's just really for today, because we have the moon in that final degree of Virgo, right? Where is that moon? Yeah, it's like 29. So moon trine Uranus, trine Pluto. So we have an interlocking double Grand Trine, Star David, at the beginning of the day. Now, as the moon progresses and moves into Libra, we'll get some of that still, but it won't be like today. So this is all about being useful and being efficient. Shit, I was up at 5:30 this morning, and a lot of it has to do with just what I'm processing. Both internally for my own life and also in the world in general. So I do think that staying busy and being engaged can be good. Make sure you're staying busy and engaged in things that are worthwhile. The other thing you need to pay attention to is this Jupiter retrograde, which is coming. And I really feel like there's going to be an economic backlash with this Jupiter retrograde. So you get ready to tighten your belts. That's coming. That is going to happen. And I think some of you can already feel that. There's a lot going on. There is we're just getting started. We are just getting started. And they're like, well, Robert, when is it going to end? When is this going to end? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the memo here is that the next 3 to 4 years are going to be difficult, very difficult, and we're just entering that phase. Does that mean that you have to stop your life, put your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye? No, you can't do that. But again, with this eclipse, you have to examine your relationship to a myriad of things. And your response is going to be this true note in Aries. This is what I'm going to attack. This is what I'm going to attack. This is what I'm going to move my energy into. If you do that, at the very least, you'll be able to begin to get your own house in order. Because Lord knows what's going on out there is much less manageable than what you can be accountable for. All right. Look how efficient we are today. I'm just basking in my newfound efficiency. See, this is how it works. This is how it works. Now, for me, I have to find balance. That's the other part of this too, because that's Libra. It's finding balance. So the imbalance part would be, hey, I'm never going to talk to anybody in chat again. I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm just going to do this. It's not really balanced, right? So once you continue to have this inner dialogue about what's imbalanced in your life, in your relationship to fill in the blank, and then you take the action is to actually what? Reestablish balance. That's how it works. That's how it works. But how about that strike in 1977, October 12th? Eclipse. Wow. Mind blowing. All right. Let's move into the star of the day so that I can actually have some balanced time at the end of this stream. See, it's very Libran. I'll have a little bit at the beginning and I'll have a little bit at the end, and then the meat in the middle. It's kind of like a breakfast sandwich. It's like a McMuffin. You're my you know what? I know McDonald's is not good for you. But honestly, back in the day, who didn't like the Egg McMuffin? I loved the Egg McMuffin back in the day. And how they got that egg just like so perfectly round, and the cheese and whatever kind of meat they had on it. Anyway, let's do this. Let's get the banner up. Here we go. And let's go into our True Hemp Science star of the day. Mr. Mark McGwire. Before we break down Mark's chart and the night that he surpassed Roger Maris for the all-time home run single season record, let's talk a little bit about True Hemp Science, which is your one-stop shop for all your CBD needs. And Chris wanted me to share with you a thank you to everyone who has supported the business and his fine products over the past year. And you guys, if you've been watching the show, you know the drill. You type in 15MINS, and guess what? You get a free goodie bag for every order of $100 or more. And again, I just hold this up as a little bit of a prop. These are the Starlight. These are the Starlight goodies. Your Starlight gummies. They're very good. They're worth the price of admission. And you get your other product, of course. $150 or more gets you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to truehempscience.com. Check out all their products. They have great CBD products. Like, let me give you another one here, like Synapta. Look at this. This is the G22 Synapta. Now, these are specially formulated and crafted by Chris. His own special touch. All right. TrueHempScience.com. Let's talk Mark McGwire. So Mark McGwire, when I was growing up in the Bay Area, I was a grown-ass man. I was grown up. Let's put it that way. I was old enough to see Mark McGwire play in the World Series against the Dodgers. The only World Series game I ever went to. And I took a bunch of baseball cards that were kind of rare, and I traded them for a ticket. I probably gave the guy too much, but I wanted to see the game. And McGwire hit a home run that game. And it was game 4 at the Coliseum, and the A's lost. So the only World Series game I ever went to, Mark McGwire hit a home run, and they lost the World Series. Now, when he started playing with the A's, he was there with Jose Canseco, and McGwire and Canseco were very different personalities. Canseco was brash, cocky, he's Cuban, and McGwire was, more reserved. Southern California guy, Libra, in fact, double Libra. You can see right here, right? Venus on the ascendant. So Mark McGwire never gave anybody. There was never any issues with Mark. Jose would be speeding and, smacking his wife Esther around. Jose was wild. You never got that with McGwire. The thing that's interesting about McGwire is that 12th house sun, which is, we've talked about this before. There's this mythic quality to the 12th house sun. And McGwire, he had that. Even though he was using steroids, he had that mythic quality. He was like, he's a big guy. Like, I think Mark McGwire is about 6'5". And before he started to get on the juice, he was an All-American baseball player. A lot of these guys, Jose Canseco was different. Jose was a marginal talent. And then he started to do steroids in the minor leagues and changed his life. But Mark was always good. He was an All-American at USC. He was like Captain America in a lot of ways. But again, how do you really know somebody with the sun in the 12th house? And literally, he wanted to make his mark. He's got the true node on the midheaven right there, almost exact on the midheaven. And it's in Cancer. And for me, baseball is a very Cancerian sport. It is connected to tradition and pastime and sort of the agrarian phase of America's evolution. But McGwire has Jupiter over here, and it's in Aries. It's the highest planet in his chart. And there's this yod to Jupiter, right? And Jupiter's all about more. And Aries, Aries is the warrior, right? That's the epitome of Aries. It's the warrior. It's the cop. It's, again, it's the first responder, which we talked about. And when you look at his chart, this yacht is really interesting because he's got Pluto with the inconjunct to Jupiter. And then he has Mars Neptune with the inconjunct to Jupiter. So McGwire is synonymous with steroids. And he has Mars in Scorpio and Neptune. And that's a really interesting conjunction. It's very rare. You don't see it a lot. So I think with a Neptune Mars conjunction, the individual's ability to understand their impact, their strength, and their performance can be occluded by Neptune. Like they could always be doubting in some ways, like how good they are, or how potent they are, or how strong they are. Now, Mars does have a sextile with Pluto and Uranus, But it almost feels like this is the remedy or the antidote to this Neptune Mars conjunction. And then it all cascades, right, with Jupiter right over here. And Jupiter in Aries. And it feels to me, if you wanted to get into the astrological examination of Mark McGwire's personal relationship with steroids, it's right here. It's right there. Because also the thing with steroids, you have to inject them, right? You have to inject steroids. You can't chew them like a gummy, and that's what they were doing. These guys were either injecting them themselves or getting their teammates to inject them, and then they had all these cycles that they had to get on, and it was all the big steroid scandal came out of the Bay Area. And at the center of it were people like Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, and Jose Canseco. And they were all connected to a guy by the name of Victor Conti and his company called Balco. So eventually they have to, testify to Congress and all this bullshit, which is a complete waste of time. The American taxpayers. But this is the day that McGwire breaks the record. And what's interesting is he also has Juno, like a Juno return happening. So it's something new, like a new record. And Mars is transiting his 10th house in Leo. So it had been transiting through there on the run up to the record. But here it's involved in a T-square. And there's clearly some controversy over McGwire doing this. And it's weird because there was controversy with Roger Maris when he broke Babe Ruth's record. He played more games, but he got more home runs and less at bats. And so many people bitched and moaned that they had to have an asterisk next to his record. And now you have McGwire coming in over the top, more games, and better living through chemistry. So you can see here where there's this opposition with Saturn and Mars in this chart at that time. And also the Mars. I mean, and I wonder, this is very hard to, figure out with somebody like McGwire with the Sun and Mercury in the 12th house, like how he really felt about all of this. What's interesting? I just remember this. I remember reading somewhere that McGwire, when he was in the Bay Area, used to like to, how they have these cop watches, like you get to go on a ride in a cop car. I think he liked to do that, if I'm not mistaken, which is very Jupiter Aries. Anyway, look, I don't bemoan the fact that this guy used steroids. My thing is that we take drugs for just about anything in our society. I mean, let's have a real discussion about it. Watch TV, and one of the major pharmaceutical companies is trying to sell you something for anything from toenail fungus to some kind of obscure breathing disorder. And that's not to mention, the culture of taking SSRIs, and now we're essentially not just legalizing, but encouraging young people to get hormone therapies, which is really in a lot of ways what steroids are. Like if you're a young woman and you are tired of being a young woman, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get anabolic steroids. That's what you're going to get. So now it's like no big deal. But back then, oh my God, it's a disgrace. It's it's his body. It's his body. And I don't, I think ultimately McGwire probably made some kind of peace with the fact that he literally became the poster boy. Him, Roger Clemens, Jose Canseco. I think those are the Barry Bonds. Those are the big four. And, I think McGwire made a lot of money and coached baseball and just kind of moved on. Do I think that steroid use should preclude them from being in the Hall of Fame? No, I don't. It was part of the culture and the time. Speaking of which, Pete Rose passed away yesterday. And that's a whole other discussion. But today, your True Hemp Science star of the day is none other than Mr. Mark McGwire. There we go. All right, guess what? I have time to hang out with you a little bit. Let's see what kind of comments we have here. Go to the end of the comic section. Let's see. Pete also had Venus on the ascendant. What do you have in Aries? Pete was he was in Aries, right? So it's double Aries. So it's a different kind of Venus. But yeah. Let's see, William. I'm just about ready to get in my truck. I've got a pocket full of money. I'd already be there. Kelly B. Some of those flooded areas have the highest amount of lithium battery making metals. Bing, 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 bing. Bing, 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 bing. That's what I was talking about with Teresa last night. And I asked her that very same question. The very same question. Let me see if I can find it here. The question I asked was about lithium. Let's see. What was the question? The question was, my question is, what's in those mountains? What minerals? A lot of quartz. My question, any traces of lithium? That's the new gold. Lithium. Yes. There you go. Disaster capitalism at its finest. Ross says, no big deal if you're doing it to hit home runs, but when you're doing it in combat sports, I have an issue. I could see that unless everybody else was doing it. But I get where you're coming from. Let's see. What else we have here? The area affected is enormous, not just Asheville, so many lives affected. That's right. Nature is a serial killer. Well, sometimes these things are kind of supernatural, especially with the technologies involved. But all it takes is a little nature to ramp it all up, right? And push the envelope. Here we go. Zoracle Dax, Spruce Pine, North Carolina, is the U.S. sole source of ultra pure quartz used in chip manufacturing. There we go. There's the backup. Right? Yep. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that we can attribute this catastrophe to not just Mother Nature, but technology. I mean, we've been entrained by this point to do it, so why not? How do I feel about Rose's death? Well, now that he's served his life sentence, he should be allowed to be in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose was not a good guy. He was very entertaining, highly competitive. He was not a good guy. But he was an Aries, and for the most part, he was unapologetic. Pete's problem is that he needed more, right? He had an addiction issue, and it manifested in gambling, but it wasn't just gambling. There was a lot more going on there with Pete. Oh, guess what? Lynn sent us some coffee. And guess what, Lynn? We'll be serving that coffee at our barbecue. For those who want to partake in some fine Panamanian coffee, we'll be serving it on Monday. So after the event, come on over and we'll have a little Panamanian coffee clutch leading up to our barbecue on Monday. All right. The strike on top of a disaster is treason. I agree. Totally agree. Raw chiming in here. He was a miserable prick, but he does now. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. Pete was very entertaining, but he was, it's really one of those things, right? He was a classic overachiever. He had what I would call slightly better than average athletic skills. And this was a guy that pushed it at every level. He would go to the gym, he would train. He was one of these guys that did it kind of early because he knew that if he was going to, he didn't have the talent of somebody like Mickey Mantle, or Willie Mays or any of these guys. So he knew that he would have to out hustle everybody in order to achieve any kind of greatness. And people that have that mindset at times will do anything that it takes to do that. Anything. So you can't separate out in some ways. Like if he was a nicer guy and a better human being and set the hit record and won the World Series and, I'm not sure. I mean, Mark McGwire is a really nice guy. He did all those things. At the end of the day, he'll be more memorable. Probably Pete Rose. All right. I'm out here. Come join us over on 15 Minutes. We're going to get an up close and personal account from our friend Teresa down there in Boone, North Carolina. In the meantime, take good care of yourself. Take care of each other. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart, two-step what's possible. And God bless y'all. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye for now.